People are often surprised when I tell them this. God being all-powerful does not mean that he can do everything and anything. There are things God can't do. Now, before you turn off the video, hold on a second. God can't do the logically impossible, and God can't do anything contrary to his nature. God can't sin, he can't die. Those things would be going against him. He also can't make 2 + 2 = 7. He can't create a square circle. Those are logical impossibilities. He can't create a merry bachelor. You're either one or the other. So God can't do these things, but that's okay. To say God is all-powerful means that God can do anything that is possible to be done and consistent with his nature. That's what we mean by saying God is all-powerful. Now what this brings then is the question, well, if God can't do the logically impossible, how did he raise Jesus from the dead? That is a logical impossibility. And for this, we have to take a step back and understand logic. What is the logical contradiction, right? A self-refuting claim is a claim that presents two contradictory opposite ideas both being true at the same time. So like, my brother is an only child. Can't be both. My parents have no living children. That affirms two opposite propositions. I can't speak a word of English. I just said that in English. That would be logical contradiction, self-refuting claim. To say that I'm both 6'5" and 5'10". Can't go together. Logically impossible for those things to be both true at the same time. So now, in the statement, God rose Jesus from the dead, what two opposite propositions does that statement make that would make this logically contradictory? And the answer is none. It's not a logical contradiction. It simply just goes against what we naturally expect to happen given natural occurrences. Right? And now imagine this all the time, right? What would naturally happen if I let go of a marker? 100 times out of 100, it'll hit the ground. Unless there's external intervention that stops it, I catch the marker. What happens if a child gets set on the water and let go? Child will drown, small child will drown. How can you get, someone once gave the analogy, how do you get a child to walk on water? Well, easy. You stand next to the pool holding the child's arms and you walk along the edge of the pool so the top of the child's feet is just touching the top of the water. Right? One thing that would be impossible is now possible given external factor. Same thing is true with the physical body. If your heart stops, if left unchecked, that person will probably die. And if their heart is completely stopped and you just leave them be, they'll be dead. But we could use a defibrillator, shock them, and bring them back to life. When you increase or you bring an external power, an external force, and you give CPR or you shock them, you can change what would naturally happen. So the same is true with Jesus. A body that is alive is not a problem, and so once dead or the heart stops and comes back to life, that's also not a problem. There's nothing logically impossible about this. Yes, dead people left dead will stay dead. But you can die, so to speak, your heart stops, and an external power, the shocker paddles, can shock you back to life. In the same way, if God does exist, then he can bring Jesus back to life. That's not logically impossible. It just goes against what we naturally expect. And that's the definition of a miracle, right? A supernatural intervention of God that generally, normally, under normal natural circumstances, is not going to take place. So God being all-powerful and not being able to do the logically impossible doesn't factor in to him raising Jesus from the dead, since there's nothing logically impossible about a person who was once alive dying and coming back from the dead again.